So, can we carry on from there, ladies and gentlemen? Any apologies, Pam?
Just Jean Tinknell.
Jean Tinknell, thank you. Minutes of our last meeting.
I'm Malcolm Lloyd. I'm the headmaster at Brymore School, which is a state boarding school for 190 boys on the edge of the village of Cannington. We specialise in rural technology.
Okay, matters arising then. TLRs are on the agenda. Supports staff remunerations, that include pensions, yes.
Without the support of people around you, the school would be worse off. Peter brings with him a spiritual dimension that he passes on to the boys in assemblies, but he brings a social dimension. You know, he works with the old people in the village as well as the young. He has an overview of what goes on in Cannington, and we would be a poorer institution if we didn't tap into that.
No.
Well, they are.
But
Good morning to you all.
Morning, Peter. Peter.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
What about geraniums?
Pelargoniums. They belong to the same family as geraniums?
I believe they're in the same...
family.
Hello, I'm Peter Martin, Rector of Cannington, Otterhampton with Cummage, Stockland and Steert, or most people rudely say Cannington and all stations to the Bristol Channel. I've been here 18 years now and somehow seem to become part of the furniture and very much enjoying being here. Cannington is historic. It's not particularly rich place. It's grown mainly because of people coming in to work at the nuclear power stations at Hinkley Point. Latterly, it's become a leader in education because of the land-based studies centre here, Brymore School, which is a unique state boys boarding school, so we've got quite a claim to fame there. It's partly commuter land, partly inhabited still by the old traditional families that have lived here for generations. It's a friendly community, it's a warm community, and it's a quite nice, pretty place to live. Cannington is still quite well blessed with facilities. There is during the day an hourly bus service still to Bridgewater, and we even have buses still on a Sunday. We've got the basic shops in the village, we've got a primary school here, so there is enough money in the economy to be able to sustain these places, which many other communities wouldn't have. There's never been traditionally wealth here, because it was traditionally a monastic community, and of course those two don't always go together.
I always rinse the cars after I've washed them in the hot water.
The Thursday coffee morning is just an opportunity for people to meet, to chat, to have a cup of coffee, and hopefully do the washing up before they go home.
Well, a lot of people come, particularly elderly people, on their way to get their pensions, and they can come and have a sit down and have a cup of coffee and have a rest on their way home.
When we first came up here, it was much smaller, and there's been about 3-4 estates built, haven't there, since then? I remember hearing somebody say they knew everybody, but they were starting to get strangers, because that was when Hinkley Point was being built, and of course that was bringing in outsiders.
Peter, what's that say there?
Deanery Mission Service.
What's that?
What's that? Well, we used to have them many years ago when we were in Sedgemoor Deanery, but now we're in Quantock, still have them, and we're hosting it.
Deanery.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So we've got to get back into the mode of those. Good morning to you all, and welcome to St Mary's, Cannington, for this our parish Eucharist, which this morning will focus on the idea of community. In many ways, although perhaps because the culture we live in, people are now not coming to church as much, I think it still holds a very dear place in the hearts of many people. If you suggest doing something to a church building or closing a church, it is remarkable the number of people who then say something about it and have got an opinion, and the general opinion is that we do not want to see this go. Even though people aren't necessarily using it all the time, they still like it there particularly in the rural areas. It's a symbol of stability, of tradition, and all the rest of it. To make the church available to the community is very important. You always tell what's done well when you look at Harvest Thanksgiving and what gets brought.
Mm-hmm.
You can always tell the abundant crops because we get tons of them.
Another thing that we've had a glut of is beetroots.
Yes, they've done well.
They've done well.
Beans have been spasmodic.
Yes.
But they're going off again. A lot of the things that used to glue us together aren't there anymore because of mobility and consumerism and lack of commitment. And as a result, we don't know our neighbours so well. We don't know people so well. I mean, I try and stop and say hello to everybody I see. I mean, it can take me half an hour to go from the rectory to the post office and back, which would take anybody else about 2 minutes. But I think it is, it is part of the gel of society. And we've been working hard in the last 2 or 3 years to strengthen links between the church and the church primary school and the use of the building and the interaction between. And now our family service every month is always heavily involved. There's a heavy involvement of the children from the school. It's all part and parcel of keeping things together and drawing them together. One of the things that I find always interesting is actually the churchyard, because all the footpaths in Cannington converge in the churchyard. And of course it's safe to going around on the roads and all the rest of it, and shortcuts through all sorts of bits and pieces. You see a lot of people walking in Cannington, the children going to school and coming home again in the evening, all sorts of things. And you're almost forced, even if you weren't terribly sociable, you're almost forced into saying hello to people. Pastorally, as a priest, then you have got a role as a leader within the community, and the term father, which is applied to a lot of clergy, it highlights that fact that you have a role there. I certainly think that the role I play in this community, I can be quite pivotal in things happening or not happening, and I can often be a go-between between things and sort of say, but if you did this and you did that, we could do this together. It's a two-way process. So, if somebody wants to be part of the community, it's easy enough if they actually don't have to go very far and ask very many questions to find an answer.
By the way, what's
they go off quicker.
That cookery book you were...
Oh, yeah.
Well, because you weren't at Congregational Committee this week, because it was a Congregational Committee.
Yeah, I was.
Did it come up?
No, it didn't.
I don't know then the answer.
We've been discussing the harvest supper.
Well, that's important. Jesus cared for people, and he was concerned about people and about where their material things as well as their spiritual lives. And that is the heart of the Christian gospel. I mean, there's plenty of examples, including dear old St. Paul, who has his moments. But it's about faith and works. And if we don't do what has become known as the social gospel, as well as the spiritual side of things, then actually I think we're failing in our mission. How we impact, obviously, how people respond to it, that's their decision. We can't force anybody. But if we're not doing our part, then we don't give them the opportunity to respond. And therefore we failed in our mission.